Welcome back to 100 Movies Everyone Should Watch, where today we're going to be covering the 1940s, a decade where the world tore itself apart from the war, and the film industry came close to a full stop. However, these 10 films are able to become some of the best films of cinema history. Our first film is Rope by Alfred Hitchcock, which tells the story of a group of friends who kill their classmate, hide the body, and invite the murdered classmate's friends and family over for dinner. Sadistic, creepy, and yet another incredible thriller by Alfred Hitchcock. What is so great about this movie is the story. There is something that is so simple, yet so groundbreaking about the story. Even just thinking about it is unsettling. However, in addition to the story, all around this movie is fantastic. It's really interesting to see the evolution of a director, and Rope was definitely a big step forward for Alfred Hitchcock's career. Rope is the 63rd of 100 movies everyone should watch, and one that you're not going to want to miss out on.
Something gone wrong, Brandon?
No, Janet just has a talent for being bothersome at times.
However, I suppose I'd better... what did you mean?
When you talk about feel-good family dramas, can anything besides It's a Wonderful Life be topped? The movie centers around a businessman who sees what life would have been like if he had never existed. When you boil it down, this is really a movie about the meaning of life. And yet, it is a story that almost anyone can get behind and enjoy. Because it is told in such a universal and straightforward way, it opens the movie up to be enjoyed by anyone. This is the movie that really moved me emotionally, and I know for a fact that I am not alone there. Breathtaking visuals, a great tone, and some great performances make It's a Wonderful Life truly a wonderful movie.
You're Ernie Bishop, and you live in Bailey Park with your wife and kid. That's right, isn't it?
I live in a shack in Potter's Field, and I ain't never seen you before in my life.
The Best Years of Our Lives has a very similar message to It's a Wonderful Life. The movie centers around a group of soldiers who return from World War II, and it is about their attempt to fit in with society after returning from the war, and their struggles both socially and in some cases physically. The film was released in 1946, and part of what happened after the war ended in the film industry was a new appreciation for life. And this film is able to embody that appreciation so well. The movie acted as one of the greatest social statements up to this point, and really showed off the horrors of war in a very untraditional way. The film also discusses what would now be called PTSD, however it did it 35 years before post-traumatic stress was officially recognized. In addition to being an important film for the film industry, The Best Years of Our Lives was an important film for the world.
Well, oh, don't, I'll carry it. What's the matter, Ma?
It's nothing.
It's just that your Ma's so glad to see you home.
Notorious tells the story of a woman who is tasked to infiltrate and spy on a group of Nazis in South America. The movie goes on to show how far she is willing to go and what she is willing to do in order to gain the trust of this group. All around, this movie is phenomenal, and normally I try and single out one particular element to discuss, but there are so many great aspects in this film. But when there are so many great aspects in a film, that becomes much more difficult. Part of what makes this so great is the cinematography. Every shot in the movie has a meaning. This is one of the first films to not only use the camera to show a story, but to help use the camera in order to tell it. The camera becomes such a big part in the film that it really helps bring the audience into the world. The performances, writing, and directing make Notorious one that you shouldn't miss.
My dear child, you must have a doctor find out what is the matter with you.
I never go near doctors. They always want to cart you off to a hospital.
Mildred Pierce is a movie about independence. After her cheating husband leaves her, Mildred tries to become successful in order to please her daughter. Yet another film that was inspired by World War II, Mildred Pierce was inspired because of what was happening in America during the war. Mildred Pierce is so effective because of its parallel to real life. Obviously, there are extremes in this movie that may not be present in everyday life, but this movie acts as a metaphor for independence and what can now be seen as women's rights. More than that, however, this is a great film noir, and this is one underappreciated aspect of this film. At the end of the day, this is a non-linear detective story about a murder, but because of the immersive storytelling, that may go unnoticed. Mildred Pierce is a great movie and the 67th of 100 movies everyone should watch.
I took the only job I could get so you and your sister could eat and have a place to sleep and some clothes on your backs.
Aren't the pies bad enough? Did you have to degrade us?
Rita, don't talk like that.
I'm really not surprised.
On the topic of film noirs, we have what is often called the best, with Double Indemnity. The movie follows a lawyer who gets talked into a scheme involving murder and insurance fraud. I don't want to say any more than that because the less you know about this movie, the better. All around, this movie is excellent and really embodies the World War II feel that is so frequent in these movies. The The film is paranoid, well written, and well acted. Above all else, what I love about this movie is the cinematography. Billy Wilder and John Seitz do a fantastic job at showing the audience just what they need to do and using the black and white elements of this film to tell a story. Despite color being an option that is available for filmmaking, these filmmakers decided to use black and white in order to enhance their story.
Me, Walter Neff, insurance agent, 35 years old, unmarried, no visible scars. Until a while ago, that is.
Casablanca might be the best love story ever caught on film. The movie tells the story of an expatriate bartender who falls in love with a former sweetheart. This is one of the most iconic films of all time, and I feel like the iconic status of this film is better known than the movie itself. But on its own, it is still remarkable. There's something that is so simple yet so spectacular about this movie, and the best part about the film is the characters. This is definitely an example of a character-driven love story, but these characters are by no means perfect specimens. They are flawed and in some ways unrelatable characters. But these flaws are what is so fantastic about this movie. All around, Casablanca is a masterpiece and one you should not miss out on.
Why did you come back? To tell me why you ran out on me at the railway station?
Yes.
Well, you can tell me now. I'm reasonably sober.
The Maltese Falcon is my favorite and what I consider to be the best film noir out there. This is another film where I don't want to say too much about it, but essentially follows a private detective who is tasked to find a missing, priceless statue. This is a relatively simple mystery thriller, and one where the less you know about it, the better, so I'm going to make sure I don't spoil anything. What I will say about this, however, is that it's an incredibly well-made mystery, and one that everyone should see and appreciate. Go in with only the expectation that the movie's going to be good, and I can guarantee you're going to like this movie.
What have you ever given me beside money? Have you ever given me any of your confidence, any of the truth? Haven't you tried to buy my loyalty with money and nothing else?
A lot of people call Citizen Kane the greatest film ever made. Although I wouldn't go that far, I will say that this ranks in an elite film of around 20 excellent films. Citizen Kane tells the story of a businessman and his rise to power in the newspaper industry, politics, and socially. However, that is only the beginning of this epic masterpiece. When you boil this movie down, it's a film about the meaning of life and what people will do in order to achieve happiness. Most great films shine in a couple of aspects, but this film is excellent all around. Incredible cinematography, editing, writing, acting, storytelling, directing. Every part of this movie is top-notch. I would have no problem calling Citizen Kane the best film of the 1940s.
I did lose $1 million last year. I expect to lose $1 million this year. I expect to lose $1 million next year. You know, Mr. Thatcher, at the rate of $1 million a year, I'll have to close this place in 60 years.
There were very few films that had an effect on the world to the level of Charlie Chaplin's The Great Dictator. The film creates a parallel to the Third Reich and the Holocaust and shows the world the injustices that happened in this period. Obviously, this is a very touchy subject, but after 75 years of hindsight, I can say that the world would be a very different place without this film. What it achieved was to shine a light on the injustices that happened across the seas, and it did it through one of Hollywood's biggest stars of all time, Charlie Chaplin. Chaplin was able to use his star power to show the world what was happening in a world of very limited news and news stories. I would call The Great Dictator the most important film of all time, but on its own, it's still great. This is the first of Chaplin's films on this list, and acts as a good introduction to his work. The silly humor that he is known for is mixed in with some very serious over and undertones. If you have not seen The Great Dictator, by all means, you should. So this marks the end of episode 8 of 100 Movies Everyone Should Watch. Make sure you join me next time to cover the 1930s. Like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video.